After we do this, we got to program them.
Check it out. Check it out.
All right, guys, so I'm coming to you from the truck. Just got here. Man, it's been a couple days, quite a few. I did the oil leak. I put that in the other video, so all these videos are probably gonna get uploaded at the same time. But yeah, I got that done. I went on a short load, and that ended up being a headache. But before I get into that, once I got the oil leak done, and then you guys seen where I had the DEF problem. Once I put everything back together, I started up the truck, and my red DEF light was on, and was a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and it was the stop light was basically telling me that the quality, DEF quality. So ended up changing the filter and stuff on that, and then had to do a regen. Once I did the regen, that rectified everything. But during the regen, literally I was sitting there watching it and the water pump went out. So that's another issue. I have not addressed that yet. It's just really just starting to weep out the weep hole. So I got to get that done. But during that time, I went on a short load and ended up losing the says 2, the number injector 1 and 3. And I'm kind of suspect if they're both bad or what, because usually you get one go out but not 2 at the same time. Now I will say, when I was in Texas, I had got a random number 1, and then it went away, and then now we're up here with this number 1 and 3. So I'm about to go ahead and dig into this, show you guys how you check these injectors from my tech guys, and we'll see what happens. But it's definitely been a little job. So without carrying it on any much longer, go ahead and jump into this. All right, so I got the laptop open, and we're gonna go ahead and check these injectors. So this chart basically tells us what the ohms and things need to be on the injectors. So let's close this out. It's an accident. So these are numbers, corresponding numbers for the injectors and what they do on the plug. We have to take this plug off on the side of the engine. So the first one here is injector 1, the injector 2, and the injector 3, which are on the first plug forward of the valve cover on the driver's side. And we need to check all the pins on the first one, because that's our problem. So we need to jump pin 1 and pin 2, and we should be getting 1.3 ohms to 2.5 on the first leg, and then we'll go from 1 to 8, and then we'll go from pin 2 and then a ground. Computer, sorry y'all, the computer's trying to move. And then pin 8 and ground, we should have greater than 100 ohms. Basically that's telling us we got good ground. So I'm going to get to that, and then we'll come back to that. So let's get that plug off, and then we'll start checking. So you have 2 plugs up here. The one closest to the front of the truck is your number 1. So we want to go with that one first. And we just basically twist that off, and it pops right out. One of the things you want to look for too, see if you got any oil in there. If there's oil in that plug anywhere, then that harness inside of the rocker cover is bad. and that could be the source of you having multiple misfires and things like that. But I already knew this was dry because I took it off, and the pins are numbered, but I already know what they are, so we're gonna go ahead and get our multimeter out and start checking. I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to film this, but we'll get to it. All right, guys, so based off of our chart, we go in here and we check the pins on this. I've already did most of it, and I can tell you what I've already found out is, for some reason, I'm not getting the ground readings that I need on the meter. So it's kind of hard to do this in film, but so basically what's happening is, remember the pins are numbered. I showed you that in the chart. If you ain't looked at the video, then you need to go back and look at that. So when I get the pin 12, well, here's 12 at the top, and then 8 in the middle on the left hand side of this here. But if you got the software, you already know what I'm talking about. So let's just move on. I should have this meter jumping at least to 100 kilo ohms on both of these, and nothing, it's dead. So to verify that there's not an issue with the plug or the injectors, now the next step is to take the rocker cover off. So now we know we need to go inside and look a little deeper. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to pulling this rocker cover off, and I guess it's kind of what I needed, because when I got to do this overhead valve adjustment, I'm gonna need to have all this off anyway. But I'll show you back on the computer of what's going on here. So now we move on, and basically we'll look at the top of the injector. If I can get this screen to move up, there we go. And it should look like that. That's the top of the injector when we pull the plugs off and take the line off. And then, well, we don't need to take the line off because we're just checking the plug, but we got to remove the harness. So once we get there, we'll recheck again. This is injector 1, and those are the pins. So pin 3, it's right there, pin 3. And then we'll do pins 3 and 2, and there's what our reading should be. So then there's 3 and 2, and that's going to tell us directly at the injector end. And theoretically, I could have just pulled the cover off and went directly to the injector, but then I wouldn't have known if there was an issue with the harness. So that's why we check the harness first, and if we need to start ripping things apart, then we move on. All right, so I'll update you guys once I get the cover taken off. All right, y'all, we got the engine torn apart, top of it anyway. As you can see, I got the laptop out here too. I wish I could have got some of this extra stuff on camera, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I'll tell you what we got. Found some rather interesting stuff, but I won't know until I really finish this off. So once I got back here and checked, I just checked at the terminals on the injectors themselves, and the readings I'm still getting, like that ground isn't where it needs to be. It's not giving me the right ohming for the injector grounding on one. Interesting enough, number 2, which never came up on the computer system, and number 3 as well, which never came up on the which comes up on the system. So 3 and 1 comes up on the diagnostic as far as problematic, but 2 never came up. But 2 is also giving me the wrong, so I might have caught this before. You know, it could have been potentially more of a problem, or I had to go right back in here. But the other part is, now I need to pull these injectors, wiring harness off, and then check them directly on the injector. And if I still get the same numbers, then we know we need to replace the injectors. Interesting enough, when I got down to 4 and did it, 4 checked out. So all the ones in the back checked out. So it's a possibility that half of my harness might be bad. This front section of my harness could have just a bad ground or something going on. And if that's the case, it'll just be a matter of changing the harness out. But we won't know until we get the harness off. So that's the next piece. I got all this stuff off, man. Got everything up here looking like a mess. So yeah, I'm going to get that done and I'll get back to you guys. All right, guys. So I know my audio might be a little crazy, but I really wanted you guys to be able to see what I was saying about the injectors being bad. So I got the harness off. I'm touching the top terminal, which is number 3. If you're looking at the injector from top, it's going to be the top left corner. It's number 3. Number 3 to ground. I'm grounding it, as you can see, to the frame. Nothing. And then number 2 is also supposed to be a ground. It's supposed to have at least over 100 kiloohms dead. But if I go up here to number 4, you guys probably see me out of frame, but if I go up here to number 4 and do the same test and ground it out, you should see the meter moving. And that's a good injector. And then now if I ground it, if I go from the voltage that's supposed to be 200 ohms, it's to put out 200 over just under 200 ohms on the number 1 and 2 on the injector side. And so I'm going to do that. Now we're back to number 1. So this should be 200 200 ohms or less. I'm sorry, man, because it is it's kiloohm test and there's a 200. So the first part of the test is a 200 kiloohm on 1 and 2. Now when I do that on the first injector, I get I'm getting less than the 2 ohms I'm supposed to get. So yeah, we're good on the ohms. So it's supposed to be less than 200 ohms. Now when I do the second part of the test, which is checking 3 and 2 at kiloohms, we got to be over 100 kiloohms. So let me switch the meter to kiloohms. Now when I do 3 and 2 as it tells us to do, on number 1 I'm getting nothing. So I'm supposed to be getting greater than 200 kiloohms. So that tells me too that my injector is also bad here. Now we're going to go to number 2 over here and we're going to do the same test. Number 3 and 2, that one it works, and this is probably why number 2 wasn't coming up, because part of the injector is still working and part of it is not, but it's not enough to throw the code. So that's the problem. Now if I do the same thing on number 2 again, number 1 again, it's dead as a doorknob. But number 2 doesn't give me a ground like it's supposed to. So if I go to number 2 and go to ground, I get nothing. If I go to number 3 on the number 2, I get nothing. So it's half working. And same thing with number 3. So I know that now that I done pulled all this off, I know that I need to replace the front set of injectors, because each part of the harness, one does 3 and 3. So it's crazy that 1, 2 and 3, well 1, 2 and 3 totally went bad. Well 2 was still hanging on by a thread. I checked 4, 5 and 6, and all of them are like well over specs. So I'm not going to bother them. After we do this, we got to program them and program the injectors once we get the numbers off of the injectors, and we need the software for that. and then we'll be good to go. So this effectively puts your boy out until after New Year's. So that's how you pro shoot one of these things. Hope this video helps somebody. I had to go through this and do it because these injectors are over $600 a piece. So you don't want to just be changing them. And that's why the procedure tells you to go and check your harness first and whatnot before you get into doing all this. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover my engine back up, and that's gonna do it.
Later.
Check it out.